Good evening, Sawadee Krap. It is with great pleasure and honor that I welcome you all here this evening at the Science Center for Education for this special event entitled A Night Under the Stars to launch our new report, A Complex Formula, Girls and Women in Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics, or STEM, in Asia. As you may know, yesterday was International Women's Day, and we are so glad that we can all gather here tonight to celebrate this important occasion. I would like to thank all of you for joining us in this celebration. In particular, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the Science Center for Education for hosting this event with us, as well as the Korean Women's Development Institute, or KWADI, for supporting this research project. While the report provides a regional perspective, I would also like to thank the national researchers who offered deeper analysis from 7 countries, namely Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Mongolia, Nepal, Republic of Korea, and Vietnam. We at UNESCO Bangkok are very proud of this report for 3 reasons. Firstly, it is the first of its kind here in the Asia Pacific, where there is very little information on girls and women in STEM. Secondly, it aims to examine underlying factors, performance of students in mathematics and science at 15 years old, participation in STEM fields in higher education, and eventually in the labor market, as well as a number of subtle yet influential educational and psychosocial factors that may be fueling the low proportion of women in STEM fields. Finally, it proposes some suggestions and steps that can be taken by countries, educators, and the private sector towards improving this balance and helping to attract more girls and women into these fields. Overall, this report, entitled A Complex Formula, makes an important contribution to the dialogue around women in STEM, offering a blueprint to a more inclusive education and one that, in practical terms, responds to the increasing demand worldwide for expertise in these fields called STEM. UNESCO supports this effort globally through the L'Oreal UNESCO partnership and the For Women in Science program. In the Asia Pacific, many countries are prioritizing STEM fields in their national policies. Yet the status of women, let alone their opportunities to pursue STEM fields in higher education and eventually as a career, vary from country to country. Despite these stark differences, however, patterns emerged showing that in this region and worldwide, we need to end stereotypes foisted upon girls in childhood about what constitutes appropriate interest, which only leads to anxiety and lowered expectations in later schooling and ultimately limiting their career choices. This is all the more critical given the importance of a woman in regard to the broader development agenda, including the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. If countries of the region, particularly middle-income countries, are to push the knowledge frontier and pursue technical breakthroughs, as they must do, in order to address their current and future development challenges, we need to encourage more young people to pursue STEM fields. In this part of the world, where women are underrepresented, we must renew this effort in regard to girls and women in particular. I believe that this report offers something of relevance to all of us here tonight: government, development workers, educators, students, professionals in both the public and private sector. Tonight, we invite you to celebrate women's success in STEM, and in particular those who have joined us to share their stories in the panel discussion that will be held shortly. Thank you very much once again to all of you for coming tonight. Very good evening to all of you. Thank you very much. Kopung Kap.
And now I'd like to call upon Dr. Suranan Supawankit, Director of the Science Center for Education, to welcome us.
Dr. Kwang Jo Kim, Director of UNESCO. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome all of you to a night under the star at Science Center for Education. This evening is taking place as UNESCO's, our close and lovely neighbor, is launching their very and interesting report, A Complex Formula, Girls and Women in Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics in Asia. On this occasion, I would like to thank UNESCO that you have chosen our venue and let us to be a part of this special event. Science Center for Education has served the public for more than 50 years. Through our time, we have been introducing and inspiring children and teenagers, both male and female, to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics with various activity and exhibition. We hope our roles and obligation would convince girls in particular to be in love with STEM, continue their higher education in the fields, and select STEM for their careers. On behalf of all staff from Science Center for Education, I once again would like to thank UNESCO for bringing this special event to our center. I hope all of us will enjoy this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Suranan and Mr. Kim. I hope that you've all been able to pick up a copy of the report and that you'll take the time to read it at your leisure. But because you probably haven't had a chance to do that yet, we'd actually like to show you a brief video that actually summarizes some of the key messages and findings of the report. And for this video, we'd like to very gratefully acknowledge a company based here in Bangkok called Minute Videos, who actually put together the video that you're about to see. So if we can have that video now.
Over the years, we at UNESCO Bangkok have wondered, why are so few women studying and working in STEM fields? Well, in early 2015, we found out. We launched a report. A complex formula, girls and women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics in Asia. Why do we need more women in STEM? In today's fast-paced world, we face mounting global challenges. Climate change, health epidemics, increased income inequality, among others, all requiring new solutions for sustainable and inclusive growth. This means we need more STEM professionals, and for that, we need to get more women involved. Let's look at the facts. Globally, women are estimated to make up just 30% of researchers in science, technology, and innovation. Only a tiny proportion of women have been awarded the most prestigious prizes. Out of 199 Nobel laureates in physics, for example, only 2 have been women. Yet women make up half the world population. Something just isn't adding up, and it tells us just how much talent and potential remains untapped. We asked 3 questions. Where do we stand? What led us here? And where to from here? We found out that girls and women in STEM fields have the same passion, motivation, and aspiration as boys and men. So then what's the problem? In Asia, gender differences in STEM don't begin in the labour market. They are already reflected in the performance of students as young as 15 years old in maths and science. In countries where boys perform better than girls in these subjects, there are far more men studying and working in STEM fields. Does this mean that there could be a link between performance and participation? Also, girls tend to perform relatively better in science than maths, which may explain why they go for science-related STEM fields of study and occupations, such as biology, chemistry, and medicine, as opposed to maths-oriented fields such as engineering, computer science, and physics. Could this explain why the women who are in STEM tend to stick to specific fields? The real reason has to do with education. We discovered that to get more women interested in STEM fields, we need to first inspire them in the classroom. This means things like creative and practical hands-on activities, teacher encouragement, and textbooks that are free from gender stereotypes. Ultimately, the report tells us that in order to stay ahead of the global challenges that affect all of us, we need to change our attitudes and throw out our old way of thinking about gender roles, including which career fields are appropriate for girls and women. This starts with early and targeted intervention in education. We have to ensure that girls and women can pursue careers in STEM with confidence, joy, a thirst for knowledge, and without fear of prejudice. Only then can all of us, women and men, benefit from fresh and innovative minds to help tackle some of the mounting global challenges our world faces. We'd love to hear what you think about our report on girls and women in STEM. How do you think we can attract more girls and women into these fields? How can we stimulate their interest in maths and science in school? Please leave your ideas in the comments below. We can get this important discussion started.
Okay, so we hope that you enjoyed that small glimpse into our report, and we thank again Minute Videos for helping us to produce this. So at this point, we're actually going to take a little break because you're probably hungry and thirsty. You've just come from work and from other places. So we invite you to help yourself to some refreshments, food and drink, and to actually enjoy some stargazing because this is a night under the stars. So our colleagues here at the Science Center have set up some special telescopes for this purpose. So actually just to your right, you can take the door to the right or behind, grab some food and drink, and then my colleagues will assist you to the telescopes. Then we'll come back at 7 o'clock to continue with our program. So please enjoy, and we'll see you in a little bit. Everyone, I hope that you enjoyed the stargazing, that you were able to see some stars, some planets. So we're now very happy to move on to a panel discussion involving a number of successful women working in different STEM fields from different countries of the Asia-Pacific region. So I'll turn the microphone over now at this point to my colleague Eleanor Salmon, who's going to moderate the panel. Eleanor is actually the author, the writer of the report. So she's worked very hard on putting the report together as well as the event. So on to you, Eleanor.
Thank you so much, Ramya, for such a lovely introduction. And thank you so much to all of you for coming here this evening. I have to say that I'm actually really moved to see so many of you here today to celebrate not only International Women's Day, that was yesterday, but to celebrate women in STEM. So this will be a 1-hour panel discussion with about 10 minutes for question and answer at the end. And I think most importantly, we'd really like to thank the 3 women that are here today. And all of them represent very different areas of STEM, because STEM, after all, is very vast. So I'd like to first introduce to my right, Jingmei Li, who is a postdoctoral researcher at the Karolinska Institutet in Sweden. She is also the winner, the 2014 winner of the UNESCO L'Oreal International Fellowship Program, which is part of the wider UNESCO L'Oreal for Women in Science program from Singapore. And then I'd like to introduce to my left, Porntip Konchen from Thailand, former head of marketing from Google. Actually, she was the first Thai Googler, which is quite an achievement, and worked at Google for almost 10 years, and now is actually being very brave and is embarking on a new venture to join a Thai-based tech startup called Jita.com. And finally, we have Deanne Renting from Australia, who is a senior petroleum engineer at Chevron, Thailand. And as a new mother, I think she'll offer us a very unique perspective. Then we have one more speaker who unfortunately could not make it here tonight. Her name is Naoko Yamazaki, and she is a Japanese astronaut, the second Japanese woman in space, who used to work for JAXA, which is the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, and was also a NASA mission specialist before retiring in 2011. However, we do have a very special video message from Naoko Yamazaki, so we would really like to thank her for having prepared this, especially for tonight. So if we can play the video message.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Naoko Yamazaki. Congratulations on launching this wonderful event for girls and women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics in Asia. I would like to express deep appreciation for the UNESCO office in Bangkok and all the dedicated participants from all over Asia. By the way, I love the title, Night Under the Stars. With such a beautiful title and wonderful people, I believe this event will be a successful one. Please let me introduce my experiences a little. When I was a young girl, I liked to watch the stars in the sky and in planetariums. Also, science fiction movies like Star Wars inspired me a lot. I believe we would all be able to go to space when grown up. Then I became an engineer because I wanted to build a spaceship. My parents had no idea on space development, but they were very supportive, fortunately. And in my high school, where all the students were girls, 40 to 50% went to STEM field. So it was very natural for me to be interested in engineering. However, when I entered the University of Tokyo, I was very surprised to see very few, less than 5% women in engineering field. But we could study all together in the same way, and the lectures and the researches were so much fun for me. And I had an experience of studying in the United States as an exchange student for 1 year. That was a very great opportunity for me because I could meet all women from all over the world in STEM field. And moreover, I could meet elder women over 70 years old who were still enjoying piloting airplanes and helicopters. That was an eye-opening surprise to me. Thanks to these experiences, I started working as an engineer first and then became an astronaut. Of course, during my 11-year training period, I faced lots of challenges sometimes. As many of you might do so, I delivered my child in my 3rd training year. And while traveling in the United States, Russia, and other countries, it became sometimes challenging. But one of my astronaut colleagues, Katie Coleman, encouraged me. Well, it is challenging, but it is not impossible. And of course, many people, like my family, my colleagues, and friends, helped me a lot. I cannot thank them enough. Without their help, I would not have been able to accomplish my space mission. Well, almost 5 years has passed since I worked on board the International Space Station. Currently, I am working for the Japanese Space Policy Committee and trying to promote space education, hoping to see more women in the STEM field and more female astronauts to follow and go beyond my paths. Again, thank you very much for all of your great efforts. I believe your efforts will enlighten young girls and women in STEM fields, like I myself was inspired when I was a little kid. I am looking forward to seeing these activities continue further, and I wish each of you all the best in your career and in your life. Thank you very much.
So a big thank you to Naoko Yamazaki for having prepared this lovely video message for us. So let's get started with the panel discussion. Actually, there's something that Naoko Yamazaki said in her video, that her first inspiration was seeing the stars in the sky and watching Star Wars. So my first question to all of you is, looking back at your earliest memories at school, what first inspired you in learning STEM-related subjects like maths and science? So we'll start with Jingmei.
First, let me thank the organizers for inviting me here. It's very, very sweet of you. My first touch with science must be when I was a very young kid. And I started asking, like, why is the sky blue? Why am I wearing blue? Why is this dress blue? Why? As many of you in the audience, you might have kids. And it's the point when they start asking why, the questions. That curiosity is science. And of course, when I grew up a little bit more, and the next biggest thing in science was actually a science center. It's like this place reminds me of where I was spending a lot of time when I was young in the science center. And that thing over there, the electric spark, just behind that fan, I used to build one when I was 5. It was like so much fun. It's like everything in the science center, there was some meaning, some explanation, some kind of wonder. Science is just wonderful.
Thank you, Jingmei. Maybe Ponte can add some comments. What was your first memory of your passion for science and maths-related subjects?
I think it's the same thing that, the kids always saying why, right? Why this happened, why that happened. But I think it's about, it's not just about why, but it's also we want to have the experience on that. Unfortunately, the girls, when I was a young age, the parents, my mom, encouraged me playing the dolls. Just the dolls, that's for the girl, right? But the guys has the other option. He can play the electricity, he can play the construction toys, he can play the Lego. All those things is very cool, but for the girl, why we only play the doll, that, doesn't happen in my mind. So I try to get the other stuff with the guy as well. So, when the guys go to the garage, or play in the car, the construction toys, so that's the first time that I try to play with them. And, wow, this is complex, but it's very passionate. That you know how it's built up, how it's construction like that. I think that is the first time I have the experience for the mathematics and science. It's not related exactly, but it's the way to think about. It's basically
Diane?
For me, it's also similar, and it's those first memories of being inspired, and I can remember thinking about how things worked and trying to make life easier and simpler. And I was probably about 5 or 6 years old, and I really loved milkshakes. And like kids, it's always about treats, right? So I wanted to build a machine that I could press a button and I would get a milkshake. So I constructed this thing out of a box and some springs, and I tried to have a way that we could trapdoor kind of the flavors into the milkshake. And of course it made a big soggy mess, but I was really fascinated at the time as to how could I have some kind of contraption that would make this for me. So that's one of the things that I remember.
So it's really about that first curiosity and the first questions. Actually what we found in this study, we looked a lot at scores from exams in maths and science, and at primary level there really isn't much of a difference in the scores between female and male students, but the difference starts to become apparent in most countries, not all of them, but it really starts to become noticeable in upper secondary school from 15 years old onwards. So that brings me on to the next question. The three of you are from very different countries, but I'm thinking also from the perspective of test scores. So, for example, in Singapore, girls do slightly better than boys in maths and science in PISA, which is an international exam. In Thailand, girls do much better than boys. But in Australia, boys do much better than girls. So could you reflect a little bit on your experience in high school and how you felt about your own performance in these subjects? Were you super confident about maths and science, or did you ever feel anxious about these subjects? Did you feel that it was a different experience for you than your male counterparts?
It's different because if you look at the past about 10 or 20 years ago, the girl in Thailand, we don't get the support much as the guy, learning about science and mathematics.
So when you were at school, actually?
Yeah.
So it was a different situation?
It's different situation, and it's about the parent and the teacher perspective, because they thought that, why the girl need to learn to study in the science. In the future, do you want to be the engineering or do you want to be in this field? No, the girl should not, get in that field. The girl has the artist's career to support that. That is the perception, of parents or the teacher at 20 years ago at my age. But I think for now, it's different. The thing has been changing because the parents, they see that the science, the mathematics, or the technology is very important, and it's not just for the guys. The girl also have the capability, they are able to get into this. And if you look at, like the girls and the boy in terms of the testing, the score, I think the thing is not about biological things. We cannot talk like, okay, girls or guys who's better than the others, but we need to talk about, individual person, that is right now, that is the timing right now.
Okay, thank you. Maybe Diane, if you'd like to add to that. I mean, your experience must have been maybe a bit different.
What I found when I was in high school was when I looked around in the classes, say in physics or in maths, as I got further and further into my high school education, there was less and less girls around me. And I found that a lot of the girls were perhaps wanting to do what their friends were doing, or not as confident, or more intimidated by some of the challenges in maths and in science. And what I ended up doing was the guys became my friends, and it didn't matter what the girls were doing. Even if I was one of the few girls in the class, I could still find my friends there in the class. But I also found that it was the teachers that were inspiring us, and they were the ones that could make a problem come to life so that we could relate to it and we could see the real challenge behind it or the real application. And they were the ones that continued to inspire us and continued to challenge us and help us to really see the benefit and the value of continuing in what we were doing with maths and science.
Wow, so for you, really, the teacher has a significant role to play in actually changing attitudes towards these subjects.
Definitely. I can remember one specific teacher, and she was a little quirky, and there was some rumors going around that she once worked at NASA. I don't know if that was true or not, but she always had great examples, and I can still remember some of her quotes, even today. She always had these really interesting and funny stories and little kind of quirky, zany quotes that she would give to us. And if we didn't write the units next to the answer to our problem, she would say, well, 8 monkeys, 8 cats? You need to write it's 8 meters or 8 seconds or whatever it is. Those little things kind of really drilled into me and really kind of continued to remind me of where this is applicable in real life, and that it's not just a problem on a piece of paper, but she really kind of brought the whole thing alive for us.
And what about you, Jingmei?
Oh, teachers matter all the world to me. It's like my grades depend on what kind of teachers I have for every semester. Seriously, when you have a biology teacher saying that the cell you drew looks like it came from Mars, you don't actually want to go for biology anymore. And there were also teachers, when you ask them, like, how does this thing you're teaching us in class apply to real life? For example, differential equations, like dy over dx in math. So I was asking my math teacher, so how do you apply this in real life? You have to explain to me before I get interested. And he just went, just study for it. And then that semester, I got an absolute F for math. It was only until like recently I spoke to a mathematician, and this guy, he was brilliant. He summarized the spread of an epidemic using dy and dx, using differential equations. The whole story was told in a formula. I was like, if my teacher, told me something that can be applied this way, like math is a language, I would have been so much more interested in math. So I think really teachers matter a lot in inspiring the students and getting the students interested in science.
And what about parents? I mean, did your parents always encourage you to study these subjects?
Actually, the parents agree with the school, but what I want to add on this is about, like 20 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, it's so old. I'm still young. When I was in high school, the education system here in Thailand, they treat, if you're a smart kid, you have to be in the science and math class only. I don't think I have the choice. I don't know if the other Thai girls sitting here have the same experience or not. So what's the choice? You want to be in the king room, you want to be, like in the great class. So that means you need to study in science and mathematics. That's the only one choice. And my mom, she's always support whatever the school says. At that time, I don't even know, about the real life that Jamie said, about learning the science and mathematics, what would I use it in the futures. I don't realize that, but I just, follow the education system. But right now when I work for, Google, yes, it's very clear for me why I need to learn science and mathematics.
My parents were also always really supportive and, really wanted me to go to college and get a good job. But I guess they were supportive of myself and my brother equally, and in whatever we wanted to do. It wasn't necessarily about math or about science. I guess they saw the passion that I had, and they continued to support that. And they never said, "Oh, that's not for girls," or they didn't really fall into those stereotypes. And I think that was part of the reason my mom continued to promote me getting a further education in maths and science, even though it wasn't necessarily something that she knew a lot about. She knew that I was excited, and so she kept encouraging me.
Nice. What about you?
My parents were very quirky. They're not very well educated. So my mom finished like 3 years of school. My dad only 6. They don't speak English. In a way, I think they didn't know that they were inspiring me. So they got this English encyclopedia set. I mean, I don't know how they got it because they don't speak English, but they hid it at the top of the shelf. I mean, it has to be for me, right? I'm the only kid in the family. So when they hid it in the shelf, I was like, I want that, I want that, I want that. And they never gave it to me. So one day I just climbed up the shelf and I took it down, and then I started reading the entire set a few times. I think that was the greatest, the scientific discovery of my life, because I discovered that encyclopedia and everything inside was so wonderful. So I think sometimes parents, sometimes they don't really know what they're doing, but they kind of like inspire you like unintentionally. But I really love my parents. They're very quirky.
Okay, well, actually that leads on quite nicely to the next question, which is, so as you're finishing high school and you start to decide what you want to study at university, what we found is often female students at that age are not all of them, but the majority are kind of going towards social sciences and humanities. And if they do go towards STEM, they go more to the medicine or biology side of things. So maybe we can start with Deanne. What is it how did you decide to study engineering? And what was your experience at university?
So for me, I was probably in about the 9th grade, and I was doing well in maths and in science, and so for the teachers, flyers come across their desk for events that promote math and science to girls. And so then from there, they would pass them on to me, and I got nominated actually to attend a Women in Science and Engineering Day at one of the local universities. And I attended a couple of things like this, a couple of camps, and I also got to go to Canberra, Australia's capital, at a National Youth Science Forum. And they were the things that really inspired me and really motivated me to go on to study engineering, because I actually got to do some hands-on things. One of it was to see what is engineering really all about, but the other thing was I got to see that it can be fun. So we were doing things like having competitions to drop eggs from the top of the engineering building, and you had to build a contraption that would house your egg so that it wouldn't smash as it fell 4 flights down to the ground. Or we had another contest where we got a raw packet of spaghetti and some hot glue guns, and we had to build a bridge that would span across a space between some desks, and then the bridge that would hold the most weight was the one that would win. And so these were the types of things where we had to do problem solving, we were challenged to work in teams, and we had to think about what was it that was going to make our contraption or our bridge the most successful, and how could we use the knowledge that we had about structures or whatever else to make our solution successful. And we had a lot of fun, and I met a lot of great people, and I got to learn a little bit more from others who were studying engineering and who were successful in the engineering field, and see what it's all about. And that was really what inspired me to go into engineering. Once I got there, I studied mechanical engineering, and I found that there was probably about 20% of girls that graduated in my class. And maybe in some of the other disciplines there were a few more. Say environmental engineering, I think there was a lot more women than in mechanical engineering in my class. But the one thing that I found about that is that I developed a group of really close friends. And so I remember there was 7 girls, and right from the beginning of first year we became really close. And even still recently, a lot of us still stay in touch. And we kind of developed this really great bond of this group of girls that was a minority amongst the class of guys. And for us, a lot of the challenge was that the class examples or the problems that we were working on, they weren't always immediately intuitive to us, or they weren't always immediately applicable and appealing to us. So say, for example, one of the big projects at the university where I was studying was to build a race car, and it was kind of like a Formula One car. So for the guys, they were in heaven. And for us, I don't think any of us worked on the race car project. It just didn't appeal to us. So I think one of the challenges that we have in society is how do we bring engineering challenges alive for girls? How do we make it something that inspires them and that really makes them want to buy into it and to be a part of it? Because we don't mind, some of us don't mind Formula One, but it's not necessarily our first preference. So making the examples, the challenges, the projects really applicable to girls is a continuing challenge.
Wow. So for you, it was really the kind of practical, hands-on side of learning that inspired you to go on. What about you, Jingmei?
It's the complete opposite. For me, it's about how to bring biological challenges to men. Because, I'm in biology and life sciences, so there are a lot of women. But I can imagine a lot of men wouldn't do what I do. Especially when I work with, there was one project where I was working with cockroaches. So I had tanks and tanks of them, and in each aquarium tank there were 3,000 cockroaches. And I tell you, all the boys in my class, they look up to me. It's like, you are brave. They don't dare to touch cockroaches because they've never been in the kitchen. Come on, cockroaches is a 6-legged insect. And stuff there were classes whereby we had to cut up frogs, like these giant bullfrogs, like this big. And they were like, no, there'll be blood on the table. I was like, oh, come on, just do it this way. So maybe it's not about, I don't know, maybe the guys are afraid to join biology. Maybe it's not, there are differences.
Yeah, and actually when we looked at enrollment in higher education by female and male, biology and pharmacy was, in some countries, it was up to 80% female. engineering was always the one, even in countries where women are quite well represented in STEM, 50% or above, or maybe just under. Engineering is always the field that has the least representation. But what is it, going back to more generally, what is it that made you choose this career path?
I never really thought about it. But I guess it's by elimination, because if you have math teachers who tell you just study for math and you don't feel involved in that subject, you kind of just give up on it. But science, I mean, I had very good science teachers who kept me motivated, inspired, and I kind of just have very good grades in science all the time. So it was a very natural path. It's like an arranged marriage.
Yeah, we'll come back to the arranged marriage part in a bit. And any comments from you, Pontip, about your experience at university and why you chose to study what you studied?
Oh, very completely opposite. My background, I grew up in a small town about 400 kilometers from Bangkok. We don't have much information to understand what the future careers for the kid in university. So, when I was the last year, right, the senior year in high school, we have to get university admission. At that time, we call entrance. Thai girl knows about this. So, what would be the majors in university that we want to get in? So I asked my teacher to recommend this, and she asked me back, What do you think you want? Which major you want to get in? The answer is, I don't know. I only know that I'm very good in, my grade is very good. I got four. The grade, equal A for science, for math. The others, biology, chemical, whatever. So I can make it very good in terms of my grade, but I don't know how do I utilize that, to realize which major or what is the future in the universities. So the teacher is trying to, narrow down about what's the career. Let's think about, not about major in university, but think about what you would like to be in the futures. So, we don't have much information as well, because when she said, do you want to be the doctor, medical doctor or not? I said, yeah, that's great, because, the parents always say that if you're a smart kid, you have to be the doctors, right? If not, you have to be the nurse. It's like, wow, it's the top and the bottom, and okay, what else I can do? And he said, what about, this job is reserved for the guys, but you can think about that, being the engineer. In my head, it's about, what is engineer? I'm thinking about the guy in the car garage, fixing the car. That is in my mind, in my head, because I don't know what's exactly the engineering, working in the career. At that time, we don't even know computer or technologies. So, and yes, he also talked, asking me about, what's about in the computer area? What is computers? The kid in a small town, we don't even know about in that area, but we just only know that we have to get the highest grade. We have to get our statement very well. So at the end, is I chose to be, entrance to get medical doctors in all my choices. So they allow us to choose for 4 choices, and I didn't get that. I didn't get into that. So that's why I, went to Lam Kam Heng University, and I studied in the first year for computer and science. Because I still in love with this. I still think that, I should have the bright future, the great future with the computer science. But with the enrollment in that university, in the second years, I changed my mind to study in finance and banking. It's very, completely different, and it's a big change. I changed it because, my friend said the industry is, is very booming about financial. But when I graduated, it's 1998.
Oh no.
I thought it's the right choice, but at the end, it's not the right choice. So yes, I have no job, and then I step into the industry about the internet, the online for travel agency. So that bring me back about I really want to work on the computers and technology area.
Wow, thank you so much for that. Okay, I want to come back to Jingmei's arranged marriage. So going into your career, so you finished university. How would you describe the different influences that led you to where you are today? What have been the challenges? What have been the positive experiences as a woman working in this field?
In the context of an arranged marriage, there are ups and downs. You just have to live through, no relationship is perfect. There are always negative experiences, there are always positive ones. I think the most important thing is not to look for something to blame, Just like when you're talking about women in science, sometimes we think that gender inequality is a problem, but there are other problems as well, like racial inequality as well. That's an even bigger problem for Asian women. But sometimes I wonder, when you're feeling really upset, you try to find the first thing to blame, and you kind of cast all these gender stereotypes and why are you treating me like that? But sometimes that might not be the truth. So sometimes I just, take a back seat and I try to calm myself down and I try to analyze the whole thing like a scientist. And sometimes it may not be what the other person is thinking, So I think, you have to work it out like a marriage, calmly.
Thanks for that. And actually, I want to come back to Pontib at this stage. Yep. So earlier we mentioned that you were the first Thai Googler, but also, it's quite brave being the first person to start up a huge global company like Google in a new market like Thailand. And also considering that Google wants to have more women, right? They have about 30% female staff, I think.
Yeah, less than 30% for the tech company. Yeah.
So how would you describe your journey? You were with them for almost 10 years. How would you describe your experience as a brave Thai Googler?
Before I work, I give a little bit about the background. Before I step into technology and then join Google. Actually, I have a lot of, the long experience, so that's why, I can use it for when I apply the job with Google. After, when I work for the travel agency, and then I really I have the passion with technology, and I want to work for, the technology company. And honestly, I don't know which part or which area I want to work in this, technology company. And in my mind, I can't imagine about the woman work in the tech company, and because, you think about the technology company, right? Google, Facebook, Yahoo, Amazon, for example. You think about the people who work in this company. What would you picture about that person? The guys with a hoodie, like Mark Zuckerberg, right? Or the guys sitting alone next to the computers. Yeah, I think about that, I think about wow, it's a nerd, it's a geek, right? It's an area for the geek, for the nerds. If you can search on Google if you don't know how it looks like. But when I talk to my friend about I want to apply to Google, and they look at me, it's like, you're a girl, what kind of job you can do at Google? That's the first question. And the second question is about, what is Google? Because at that time, 10 years ago in Thailand, we don't use much about online. So that's why you said I'm brave to work in for the technology, because, I think that is something very challenging. And I think my experience in the university that I cannot, I changed a lot and I learned a lot. And then I can use that experience to apply to Google. Before Google, I worked for the startup company for online travel agencies. and doesn't work well because the crisis, at that time is about 9/11. So we have zero revenue, and then I said, okay, I need to step into the big company. So that's why I take the chance to apply Google job, and that's a big challenge because when I look at the qualification, Google really want to get what kind of person. Yeah. It's very clear that you have to get technology background. It's very clear that you have to get like computer science. You have to get anything related to the technologies. For myself, I have that. It's just like very less knowledge about that. So when I walked to Google, I told the interviewer, like to say that I'm Thai. I understand what Thai people really want to use Google. What product they love Google and what product they don't like Google. Which part that we need to improve. So that is the word that I told Google, and they said, okay, that's exactly we are looking for. Yeah, so that's why I work for Google. And the first job with Google, just only one person. That's very good. I thought I was, meeting the geek nurse or, the guy who's allow me because I want to be allowed, like to be only one girl with the other guys. But just only me sitting in the office here. We don't even have the office in Bangkok. Yeah, so being one person is so hard because, you need to work with the other person who's based in San Francisco. And the other hard part working at Google because I realized that which product we need to improve for Thai users. And then I talked to the engineer in US, in San Francisco. The first time when we have the conference call, I thought we have different language. I was like, am I speaking English? It's very hard to talk with the engineer guy. The programming guy, they have their own word, they have their own language. I don't get it what they say, so that's the hard part. And then, like as a woman, we know how to negotiate, we know how to compromise, we know how to make the connection with people, and we solve and we use our skills, women's skill quite a lot. And then even though I don't understand what he said, but I can ask him to support. That's the best part that like I learned. And yeah, it's about 9 years with Google, and recently I just left for about 2 weeks already, but still being the representative for Google, speaking at the event. The next future is even big challenge to me. So many people, I'm working at Google and then I learned a lot, and now I'm setting up my own startup, the tech startup.
But that's so brave in a way to leave a company that big like Google to go and do your own thing.
Yeah, so many people asking like, are you crazy? Are you crazy? You live in Google? Because so many people said it's so hard to get the job there. And I said, the person who inspired me about this is actually Google CEO. How to thank him? He said, if you are doing something that is not crazy, that means you are doing the wrong thing. So I think about, wow, I really want to make something else. I know that the job is important right now, but something else that I have the idea is big challenge and is crazy. So I decided to work on the technology company for the financial and investment, and going to Silicon Valley, and expanding it to the global users.
Wow, that's really brave.
Thank you.
So we'll just finish this question with Deanne. So you're really working in the field where it's kind of known for not having that many women represented. But maybe your experience here in Thailand is a little bit different. So could you share your experience, your journey leading up to where you are today in your work, and also how you've managed to balance work and family life as a new mother as well?
Well, it's interesting that you should point that out because throughout most of my career, I've been the only female in my team. And when I look around, all of the other people in my team are guys. You know, it's not that dissimilar to when I was in, the 10th grade and I was sitting there in my math class and there was maybe one other girl in the rest of the classroom and everyone else was a guy. So from that perspective, it didn't seem too strange to me. And I found that generally on the whole, the guys were very supportive and there's a lot of maybe baby boomer generation that work in the oil industry. And particularly a lot of the guys in the field, they're the people that get their hands dirty and that, turn the valves and things. They really kind of acted a little like a familiar uncle, someone that would take you under their wing and that would want to teach you things. And I found that if I was inquisitive and I wanted to learn and I was respectful, that they would really help me out and take me on board and show me what things were all about. So that was a really good experience, and I've worked in a number of different countries, and I found that sometimes it was easier than others, but in general, working with the guys has been a pretty good experience. And then I've been here in Thailand now for about 6 months, and this is the place actually where I've seen the most women, and there are actually quite a number of women in my team, some really great women that I work with. So it's a pretty different experience here, and I wonder if that is related to...
Actually, it is. If you look in the report, we have the proportion of female researchers in science, technology, and innovation, and Thailand is one of the only countries on that list that has actually 51% female. So if just by looking at that, already it kind of explains why it's probably a different situation.
So that's been a real positive here in Thailand. The other thing, as Eleanor mentioned, that I'm sort of learning in the transition is balancing family life and things outside of work with work. And so I have a 6-month-old son, and I've been back at work now for 2 months, and starting to try to balance that and starting to see things very differently than what I did before. So my second week back at work, I was offshore on one of our platforms in the Gulf of Thailand, and suddenly there's no cell phone reception, and I'm still nursing my son, and so he's at home and I'm off there offshore kind of by myself, and it's quite a unique experience that I guess you're not really ever prepared for until you actually become a parent. As someone that worked with parents previously, I never really understood what constraints they were under when suddenly there's a 5 o'clock meeting and they're trying to go, I've got to get out of here and get home to my children. There's a lot more that we're trying to juggle, and it's been a really positive experience, though. I found that everyone at work has been really supportive, and I'm also really lucky in that I have a really supportive husband. Not only has he moved around to various countries with me, he is now elected to stay at home and spend a lot of time with our son, and so that also makes me feel a lot more confident when things do run over at work and I know that I'm running late, running out of the door. I know that he's there helping out our son. So it's a challenge trying to balance it all, and I know that no one has the answer, but I'm trying to work it out.
Wow. So for you, actually, one of the things that really make a difference is having such a supportive husband as well.
Definitely. He also was previously working in science. He was in the biotechnology industry, and there was a lot of compromise and a lot of balances. But for us, we knew that when we had kids, we wanted to have one of us there with them and really have a strong influence on their upbringing. And it was, I guess, coming up with that compromise that helped both of us, I guess, in order to balance family life and also work. And it certainly hasn't been easy, but he's also forging his own new way while we're trying to come up with our strategies for dealing with being single females in our teams of men in our industries. He's also dealing with being kind of the lone dad with all the mothers groups. So it's been a good balance between us.
Yes, very quickly, this will be the last question, because actually one of the things that we found in this report is that the higher level you go, the less women are there. So not only are you with a mechanical engineering background where really there are the least women, but you're also a senior production engineer. Did you face a lot of challenges getting to that point? Or again, was it because you had such supportive male colleagues as well. If you could just briefly share about that, Ellen.
Yeah, I've definitely observed that as you get to more and more senior positions and you look at leadership roles, there are very few women. And part of the challenge, I guess, that we face is that we don't necessarily have the role models. And also, there's a lot of discussion around who are the mentors or who are the people that are kind of taking us with them or helping us along in those senior roles. And for women, that can certainly be more of a challenge. It's hard to say personally. I mean, I've had a lot of supportive men that I've worked with that have really helped me, that have taught me a lot, that have given me opportunities, that have challenged me. And I can think of some of my greatest mentors and supporters have been really, really inspiring men. But then on the same side, I've also developed some strong relationships with some females in the industry, some of them peers and some of them seniors, who I can go to when things are getting tough or when I'm not really sure, like, what did he mean? What is this all about? Or, when I'm having those frustrating moments, or when I'm not sure about how to deal with the balance with being a new mother and coming back to work and how does it all work. So those relationships that I've formed, with the women that have gone before me and also with the men that have been really supportive have been extremely important.
Wow, so it's almost like mirroring the school teacher-student relationship. Unfortunately, I think that's all we've got left, but if we have any questions from the audience, we've got about 5 to 10 minutes. So if you can just stand up, share your name, affiliation, and maybe the panelists that you'd like to address the question to. I'm sure someone has a question here. Here we go.
Hi there, I'm Jessica Wepanyongrat. I'm from the Faculty of Economics at Chulalongkorn University. So another field with few women, at least in the United States, about only 30%, but here it's actually about 60%, so kind of an interesting thing. My colleague and I have been working on sort of the labor market aspects of STEM and looking at gendered differences in labor market outcomes. And we're just getting into this project, but we were looking at the labor force survey for here in Thailand, and only 8% of women who are in the survey who work for private and public firms have STEM degrees. And of those 8%, only 9% actually match up with STEM jobs, which means that the vast majority, 90% of STEM degree holders do not work in STEM jobs here in Thailand. So, and maybe Pontip, you can say something about it. It seems that even though you might have the desire, you've all talked about this great desire, the people who have inspired you to work in STEM, but from what we're looking at, it's looking pretty bleak on the labor demand side. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of demand for those STEM graduates that are coming out. So I'm not sure, there's more just a thought, but do you have any thoughts about this?
So this is based on my opinion, experience. I don't know if the correct answer or not, but we talk about the percentage of the girl outperform the boy in the report, right? That means it's not just only biological thing, but as I mentioned, but it's also when you graduated the high school and universities, the other thing that we need to change in this country is about the perception, is about the cultures. Or, I just got the other word is called stereotype, right? People made the perception that the girl cannot work in the STEM fields area, like scientists or engineering. So I work in the Thai company as well, and in the tech company travel agency. When graduated from university and they apply with a resume for the computer engineering, for example, the percentage of the HR will consider on the guy, even though they have the same qualification, the same education level. That's the first thing. That's what I can feel, and also I talk to them, why do you think about that? They think that, the perception is the guy can work well on the computer engineering, on the technologies in that part. And also, even though, you can pass the HR and you work on that company, I also get information that in the same job level, the female get lower pay than the guy. It's also the culture, the perception, of people that, they expect that the guy can, have more outcome than the girl, than the female. So in that environment of the jobs that make female, doesn't want to work in this field. And also, if you get into the company in Thailand as well, about, so many guys there, the female just minority, like, for example, 30% in the startup or the tech company. The environment is also, is a centric guys. It is centric with the men. They're talking about all guy stops. They have their facility, they have everything support to the guy. And also some company even overlook, the environment for the female, for example, the harassment. That happened in the tech company that, a lot of guys as well. So I think that is, to make people in the industry realize that you should, if you are the girl and you work for the tech company, it's not good place for you. That's the first thing. And the second thing, that if you want to be success in that career, the girl is so hard to climb up into the C-level or the highest level in the company.
Okay. Any more questions?
My name is Montri Chulavatnato. Retired as a professor from Mahidol University, teaching biochemistry. And a lot of my students, graduate students in particular, more females than male. Okay, that's fact number one. And fact number two is that I'd like to address a question about STEM education and STEM professionals. The question that was just raised, that you enter into STEM field, but you have to work in STEM field. I'd like to make one clarification, because at the moment, at this time, I'm the chairman of the board of the Institute for the Promotion of Teaching Science and Technology, IPST, just next door from here. My statement about STEM education and STEM career is that in future, we're not talking about the past, not talking about my generation, future generations, those who are still in school now. If they don't study STEM, whatever career in the future would be harder for them, whether it's be in engineering, or in medicine, or in finance, or in business. Because STEM is really the core of competencies for the 21st centuries. So if I may say that, regardless of what future career future students would like to take, they need STEM education in their background. Without it, you would be lost. Your generation or my generation and generation before, we had more opportunity. But now the opportunity is very competitive. Therefore, you may graduate as an engineer, but you can work in a business field. Or you can graduate in MBA and you can work in finance, and you need a lot of STEM information. Otherwise, how do you calculate, the return of your investment? That's simple. Thank you very much.
I think that's a really important point, that no matter what we do, there's technology, there's mathematics, and there's some element of science that is involved in what we're doing.
I agree that STEM is important, but how much STEM? Do you actually have to get a PhD in STEM fields is it enough just to go through high school with just the basic knowledge of the sciences? I mean, yeah, I agree, it's totally very important, but maybe just the basic understanding to get everyone, more on the field.
Yeah, totally agree. And I'm really glad that the Mahidol University is also supporting on the STEM, right? So I met the other people, the other organization who's attending right now to this event, also working for the STEM to support, the students realize about this important. And also we have the organization who, award to the women in the STEM side, like L'Oreal. Working with UNESCO, give the award to me. So this is very, very important to, support to the student and also for the career in the future. For my perspective, the internet users, the online user is like 3 billion users. But, only 30% is a woman who develop those technology. Do you think it's balanced? I don't think it's, we need more women in the technology to give them, the perspective to develop the technologies. I believe in that, the equality of the opportunity will make the equality of the outcome.
Thank you so much for that. And on that note, I think that we can give a round of applause to our lovely and successful women in STEM for coming here tonight.
We'd really like to thank all of the panelists for sharing such candid memories from your own childhoods, from your adolescence, from where you are today. I think it really brings to life a lot of what we've covered in this report. So thank you very much for that. It's really exciting to work on this issue at UNESCO Bangkok, where we're really at the intersection of working on education, of promoting gender equality, and of working on the sciences as well. So this study, this work that will continue even beyond this report and this event, really I think brings UNESCO to the forefront of some very, very exciting work that's going on. So thank you to all of you.